Okay, let's unpack this. Today we are taking a deep dive into, well, a truly monumental personal quest. It's all documented in source material that kind of marries the ruthless precision of modern engineering with the profound depth of ancient Indological studies.
It really is something else. Our source material, it comes from a professional software engineer, someone who spent, over 30 years researching comparative Indian philosophies.
Exactly, and driven specifically by this really huge ambition to achieve mukti, liberation, by inquiring directly into Brahma, the absolute truth itself.
And it's such an extraordinary undertaking because, as you said, the author wasn't just doing academic research from a distance. They were really engaged in an existential project, deeply personal.
Right.
The underlying premise, if I'm getting it right, is sort of, if the physical universe is governed by laws, logic, physics, then the spiritual universe must also be, even if those laws operate on a plane we usually call metaphysical.
Yeah, different level of reality, but still with its own internal logic, maybe.
Yeah.
Precisely. So our mission today is to explore this synthesis. We're using the spiritual context of Indian philosophies and focusing particularly on the iconography and meaning around Lord Muruga, or Skanda, to try and bridge these ancient concepts with, rational modern thought.
And that journey, as the source recounts it, it's so crucial because it didn't start from a place of just, simple acceptance or inherited faith.
No, not at all.
The author admits to starting out neither as a totally convinced theist, nor like a dogmatic atheist, or even a comfortable agnostic.
Which is where many people are, realistically.
Right, floating somewhere in that really fascinating, intellectually fertile space in between, where absolute certainty just feels impossible. And skepticism is kind of the first tool you have to pick up.
And that starting point is absolutely vital because, many people just assume spiritual pursuit begins with belief. You have to sign up first.
Yeah.
But the source material, it gives us this really useful framework. It outlines 4 common categories for how people follow a faith. And interestingly, most of them have almost nothing to do with genuine spiritual realization.
Right. Let's break those down. The vast, overwhelming majority, the text says, falls into the first one. Convention.
Just tradition.
Yeah, simply following family tradition. If you're born into a Hindu family, you're Hindu by default. Born Christian, you're Christian. It's like an inherited identity, not really a chosen belief system.
Makes sense. It's the path of least resistance for many.
Then the second category is compulsion. This is where faith is adopted because of social or political pressure.
Yeah, the source mentions some pretty dark historical examples, like forced conversions during periods such as, say, the Mughal rule in India.
Where adopting a specific belief system wasn't about spirituality at all. It was basically about survival.
Exactly. Not a free choice.
Okay, then we have number 3, convenience.
The pragmatic approach.
Right. This is where people choose a faith system based on some kind of calculated exchange or, vested interest. Maybe it promises money or social upliftment, networking opportunities.
A means to an end.
Totally utilitarian. It's a tool for some external goal.
And finally, the goal itself, and apparently the rarest category, conviction.
This is the one the author was after.
Right. This involves having a strong personal belief system that comes from profound, verifiable personal experience. Not just inherited, not forced, not convenient, real.
And what really stands out is the realization that to even get close to conviction, you have to shed dogmatism.
On both sides.
Exactly.
Right.
Which exists just as much on the atheist side, that sort of short-sighted condemnation in scriptures as just trash and superstition. And also on the dogmatic theist side that just refuses to question tradition no matter what.
So the author realized, okay, any true quest for Brahma, for this absolute truth, has to be fundamentally unbiased. You have to question every dogma, whether it's secular or religious.
And this is where the source brings in Descartes, right? That requirement for true rational inquiry.
Yes, the necessity to doubt of all those things in which we may discover even the smallest suspicion of uncertainty. You have to be willing to question everything.
Okay, but here's the tension, right? If the quest is ultimately spiritual, how can pure, mechanical rationalism access truths that are inherently mystical or, beyond the senses?
That is the ultimate tension. And the source handles it, I think, brilliantly by leaning on psychology, specifically William James's varieties of religious experiences.
James, yeah.
James basically posits that rationalism, relying solely on abstract principles, sensation, logic, definite inferences, it only accounts for the relatively superficial part of our mental life.
Just the top layer.
Exactly. It's only the surface.
He calls it the loquacious level, right?
Right.
The part that can talk about things, the part that wants peer-reviewed proofs for experiences that might be deeply subjective.
That's the one. So if pure logic is superficial, what actually drives our fundamental beliefs, our deep-seated feelings about reality?
Good question.
Well, James argues that our fundamental beliefs, like our dumb intuitions, our impulses, our faiths, even our divinations, they often come from a deeper level of our nature, deeper than the purely logical one.
The subconscious, maybe.
Oh,
The stuff we can't fully articulate.
kind of. He suggests the subconscious prepares the premises, sets the stage, and our conscious intelligence just follows where that deeper instinct leads.
Oh, okay. So the intellect rationalizes what the gut already knows.
In a way, yeah. And this explains why critical arguments, no matter how logically superior they might seem, almost never convert someone's deeply held, internally realized faith. You can't logic someone out of something they didn't logic themselves into.
That makes a lot of sense. It suggests the deepest truths have to be realized internally. You feel them, you experience them, rather than just deducing them externally through syllogisms.
Right.
But if we accept that there's this deeper reality, accessed maybe through intuition or experience, does that reality somehow conflict with the objective reality that physics studies? Particles, forces, laws.
Well, what's fascinating here, and this is a core point in the source, is how this realization leads to an incredible convergence. Not conflict, but convergence.
Okay.
The source makes this really profound claim that the energy or the field that the scientist talks about and the Ishvara, God that the theist talks about, often they're actually referring to the exact same absolute reality.
Wow. Okay. Just using different languages.
Different terminologies, different frameworks, but pointing towards the same underlying, truth.
And this isn't just some, philosophical leap of faith the author is
No, it's supported by some giants of physical science. Think of Fritjof Capra.
The Tao of Physics.
Yeah.
Classic.
Exactly. He famously outlined how the basic elements of the Eastern worldview, the interconnectedness, the constant flux, the non-material nature of reality at its most fundamental level, are precisely the kinds of ideas emerging from modern quantum and relativistic physics. The implication is huge. Science and spiritual aims might actually be moving toward harmony, not perpetual conflict.
It's like they're finding common ground at the very deepest levels of reality.
It seems that way. And even Werner Heisenberg, the father of quantum mechanics.
Uncertainty principle, yeah.
He acknowledged the importance of cultural context in scientific discovery. He specifically noted the significant contributions of Japanese theoretical physics, suggesting their cultural background might have given them a helpful perspective.
That's extraordinary. It suggests that certain philosophical lenses might actually make understanding physical reality easier. Like maybe some ancient cultures had an intuitive grasp of things that science is only now confirming mathematically.
It really does imply that, doesn't it? That the ancient intuitive understanding of reality in certain cultures was perhaps in some ways a step ahead in grasping the deeper structure of existence. And this unity becomes most startling when we look at the source's synthesis of spiritual cosmology with physics. Specifically, this section on the metaphysics of thermodynamics, or Prakratika Imagatika Shastra Syatattva Mimasa.
Okay, the metaphysics of thermodynamics. Let's unpack this deep connection between the principles of heat, energy, and the absolute truth. This is where it gets really interesting, as you said.
It really does. So thermodynamics, it defines different types of systems based on how they interact with their surroundings.
Right, like open systems, closed systems.
Exactly. And the ancient texts, according to this source, draw this direct, almost mind-bending parallel between these physical systems and Brahman, the ultimate reality.
How so?
Well, let's start with the ideal state. In physics, you have an isolated system. That's one where the total energy is perfectly conserved, and there's absolutely no exchange with the outside environment. Nothing gets in, nothing gets out.
Okay, totally self-contained.
Right. And this is analogized to Nirgutta Brahman, the transcendental absolute singularity. It's the undivided whole, without any internal partitions. It has nothing to give or take because it is everything.
So static, eternal, beyond phenomena.
Precisely. It's the potential, the unmanifest ground of being.
Okay. And then there's the reality we actually live in, the messy, changing world.
Exactly. That corresponds to the completely open system. This is a system that's constantly interacting, exchanging energy, transforming.
Like a living organism, or the whole universe as we see it.
Yes. And this is analogized to Sagutta Brahman, the immanent relative cosmic whole. This is the manifest universe, full of distinctions, change, temporality, full of interaction.
So Brahman isn't just one or the other, it's both.
That's the key insight here. The source establishes Brahman as the ultimate system, capable of embodying both the isolated, non-dual, absolute nirguta and the interacting, pluralistic relative, sagut. It contains both states.
Wow, okay. And this parallel, it's cemented by that fundamental rule of physics, the law of conservation of energy mass.
Yeah.
Energy can't be created or destroyed, right? Only transform.
Correct. And how does the source connect this scientific law to the nature of the absolute?
How does it?
Metaphysically, this law is seen to reflect Kala Lipyantara of Ideya, which translates roughly to time translation symmetry,
Right.
meaning the total energy content of the universe remains constant, regardless of time. Time passes, things change form, but the total amount of stuff energy mass stays the same.
Ah, okay. So that suggests an underlying eternal reality that's utterly independent of temporal change.
Which is Brahman. The transient existence of all the phenomenal things we see is just a temporary transformation or reshuffling of this conserved eternal energy.
Okay, that makes sense. But if all energy is conserved eternally, why do we experience decay, death, dissolution? Why does the universe seem to be, running down or falling apart in some ways?
Ah, yes. That is precisely where the second law of thermodynamics comes in, entropy. And it's why the source notes that time plays the villain in the cosmic drama.
Entropy, the measure of disorder, right?
Exactly. Avyavastamana, as the text puts it, turning inward or turning towards disorder. The second law basically dictates that in a closed system, or even in the universe as a whole over long enough timescales, disorder generally increases over time. Things tend to fall apart, spread out, become less organized.
So if the Sagu Brahman, the manifest universe we live in, is like an open system interacting within the flow of time,
Then it must contend with increasing randomness, increasing entropy, this disorder, this decay, this tendency towards chaos that is the temporal process we experience.
Wow.
And it contrasts sharply with the eternal unchanging order of Nirguta Brahman.
Okay, so the implication is profound. Our lived experience of time is fundamentally tied to decay and change, to entropy.
Yes. And therefore, the spiritual quest, the quest for mukti or liberation, must be, in a sense, an effort to move against the arrow of entropy.
Wow. To access the non-temporal, conserved, ordered state, the nirguna state.
Precisely. It's a quest for permanent eternal order within the apparent chaos of the temporal entropic universe. It's about finding the changeless within the changing.
That is a staggering bridge between, the physics lab and the meditation cave. Truly mind-blowing.
It really is.
Okay, so moving from these abstract physics principles to more concrete allegory, we transition to the divine fire principle, Agni Tattva. Fire seems to be the key mechanism, the agent that enables this energy transformation from the eternal to the temporal.
It's absolutely crucial. Agni Tattva is defined in the source not just as literal fire, obviously, but as the third phase of matter-light fire, and its spiritual significance is primordial, goes way back.
To the Vedas.
Yes, the Veda doesn't just worship fire as an element, it adores Agni as the supreme being. He's called the Agran, the foremost, the leader, the prime mover of all processes.
And the text specifies Agni's critical role. He's the devourer of oblations and sacrifice, yes, but crucially, the activator of our physical bodies.
Yes. Without that spark, that Agni principle, the body just remains inert matter. It's the animating force.
And this connects immediately to Lord Muruga, Skanda, the central figure of our deep dive today.
Directly. The epithet Agranth, the foremost, is also given to the planet Mars, Savai or Agarika in Sanskrit, and Mars is the presiding deity for Lord Muruga.
Ah, so the fire principle is indispensable to Skanda's very essence.
Absolutely. The source describes Agni as the Pavitrapatud Tasya Jata Puchaka Kudirmiamayasya Mukadvaram, which means
The main doorway for the energy exchange.
between the sacred father Shiva and his begotten son Skanda, Agni is the conduit, the transformer.
Okay, given that Agni is this gateway for energy exchange, this leads us straight into the mythological narrative of Lord Skanda's birth, which is, let's be honest, notoriously complex and, if you take it literally, quite confounding.
Oh, absolutely. It really underlines the necessity of applying a hermeneutical key, looking for the symbolic meaning to unlock the spiritual allegory hidden within.
Because the literal story is wild.
It is, but we should think of it as an esoteric thermodynamic process disguised as mythology. The main players in the myth are Lord Paramashiva, the absolute seed giver.
The source potential.
Right. Then there's Agnadeva, the fire god, who acts as the carrier, the messenger of transformation.
The energy conduit.
And Svahadeva, who is the daughter of Daksha Prajapati.
Okay, so the story takes this dramatic turn because Agni, the fire god, is consumed by lust for the wives of the 7 great Vedic sages, the Saptarishis.
Yes, a very potent symbol there. And Svaha, who desires Agni herself, sees this as her opportunity. She uses his desire.
Right, she ingeniously disguises herself as 6 of the 7 wives. She can't imitate Arundhati.
Because Arundhati's devotion and purity are too strong, which is itself interesting devotion as a kind of protective energy field.
Yeah, so Svaha disguises the other 6 wives, approaches Agni, and copulates with him. This act is the mechanism for gathering the ritas, the divine semen or energy.
Which has been charged, essentially by Shiva's potential, now carried by Agni.
And Svaha, wanting to protect the wives from slander, then takes the form of a bird and casts this accumulated semen into a golden lake, or a patch of reeds, depending on the version. She repeats this 6 times.
Leading to the birth of a child with 6 faces, Sharavanapava, born from the reeds representing the 6 core centers of consciousness, or maybe the 6 Kritika stars. The symbolism is layered.
Okay, so if we look beyond the literal drama, what's the hidden meaning? What is the symbolic function of Swaha, for instance?
Well, etymologically, her name can mean well said, signifying acceptance or offering, but theologically, her role is interpreted as atmasamarpanam.
Self-surrender.
Yes, her act, even though it seems motivated by desire in the surface narrative, fundamentally represents taiga, donation, sacrifice, giving over.
So the whole process, Shiva providing the seed, Agni carrying the energy, Svaha donating it back into the cosmic stream.
It represents Brahmajaya Vikasa, the cosmic evolutionary process. It's the energy transformation from the pure spiritual state Shiva, who corresponds to the lunar principle, Somatattva.
The cool passive potential.
Right, to the gross material state of manifestation. Shakti, the mother principle, corresponds to the solar principle, Sudya Tattva, the heat, the energy. Skanda is the resulting product of this immense esoteric thermodynamic synergy, the joining of opposites through fire.
In Skanda's 6 faces, then, they also have to be understood allegorically, not just as literal heads.
Absolutely. They're not just physical features. They're often connected to the 36 tattvas, the fundamental principles of existence in Saiva Siddhanta philosophy, or sometimes to the 6 primary spiritual centers, the chakras.
So it symbolizes a kind of divine perfection, capable of perceiving and interacting with the manifest world from all directions simultaneously.
Exactly. It represents the ultimate manifestation of controlled, perfected energy. And the transformation itself, the energy shifting from Shiva's pure spiritual inertia through Agni's catalytic firepower to the phenomenal form of Skanda that is the great Tyaga, the sacrifice required for creation itself.
This whole philosophical framework, it really shifts our view of human potential, doesn't it? If the cosmos operates on these principles of conserved, transformable energy,
then man, who is often seen as a microcosm of the macrocosm,
must also have the potential to control his own internal systems, his own energy.
Precisely. The source highlights this by noting humanity's achievements in external control. Nanotechnology, genetic engineering, space travel. Incredible feats.
Sure.
But it also points to humanity's potential for internal conquest, demonstrated by spiritual giants like the Buddha or Christ or the great yogis.
Swami Vivekananda captured this, right? That quote.
Each soul is potentially divine.
Yes.
The goal of human existence, from this perspective, is to manifest this inherent divinity by controlling nature, both external and internal.
So the pursuit of the absolute truth of Brahma must therefore involve these advanced techniques for internal energy management and transformation. It's not just intellectual understanding.
It has to be experiential, which brings us right to the core of the yogic path to immortality, or at least profound transformation. Amatasiddhi yoga.
The yoga for accomplishing immortality, often requiring something called Paryaka yoga, bedstead yoga. That sounds intriguing.
It does, doesn't it? But this is definitely not for the novice. It's advanced practice.
Okay.
This path focuses intensely on leveraging internal fluids and maximizing vitality. The primary technical process mentioned is Bindu Urdhvapatana,
Which means?
semen sublimation, or sometimes called Vindusudhi, semen cleansing. This is achieved through a process called Kamagnihotra.
Kamagni, like the fire of desire. And Hotra is sacrifice.
Exactly. The sacrifice of the desire force, the internal Agni principle, that fire within, is utilized consciously to refine the vital fluid, the bindu.
So it sounds like a really sophisticated kind of internal alchemy, not just physical discipline or like simple repression.
Absolutely not repression. The source is very clear on this. Suppression just leads to neurotic problems, right? This is spiritual sublimation, conversion.
Okay. How exactly is this energy refined or converted?
The goal is to transmute the raw reproductive energy, the vital fluid, bindu, which naturally tends to flow downwards and outwards,
Right.
into Kundalini Shakti, the coiled, latent spiritual energy residing at the base of the spine. This transformation involves Ujjasapara Vipardayan,
Which means reversing the flow.
reversing the natural downward flow of vitality, Ojas, turning it upward.
Upward through the central channel of the spine, the suanak, which is often dormant in most people, right?
Precisely. It's
Oh.
usually closed off.
Yeah.
The goal is to awaken this channel, awaken the Kundalini energy, and then raise it progressively, consciously, through the 6 core centers, the Atara chakras.
Yeah, the chakras.
Yes, culminating eventually in the Sahasrara Padma, the 1,000-petaled lotus at the crown of the head,
Okay.
also called the Amathechas, the deathless head. The ancient Tamil text, the Tirumantiram, speaks poetically about this. It advises that the bindu, once conserved and raised upward, becomes a double receptacle of joy eternal. This transformation of vital fluid into spiritual radiance, ohas, is the very essence of practices like kaya kalpa, the science of preserving and perfecting the body for spiritual purposes.
And this deep internal science is beautifully mirrored, isn't it, in the iconography associated with Muruga himself, like the snake.
Yes, absolutely. The dormant Kundalini energy is very often symbolized as the Antasarpa, the inner snake, coiled and sleeping.
And a seeker who successfully awakens and controls this energy is revered, sometimes called a Pampiditstadar.
A snake charmer, one who has mastered the internal serpent energy. And significantly, Muruga is frequently worshipped as Nageshvara, the lord of the snake. It confirms his role as the master and guide of this coiled, powerful, potentially dangerous internal force.
Okay, that makes sense. But then there's his famous vehicle, the peacock, the male. That seems almost counterintuitive. If the goal is internal concentration and control, why ride such a flamboyant, beautiful, potentially distracting bird?
That's a great question. The peacock's symbolism is incredibly rich and complex. Sri Aurobindo, for example, explained that the peacock actually represents the spiritual dilemma itself.
The dilemma. How so?
Think about its extravagant, vibrant colors. They represent the multitude of past desire impressions, the vasanas, all the distractions, the karmic tendencies, the sensory overload of the phenomenal world that pulls the mind outward.
Ah, so Lord Skanda riding the peacock signifies stabilizing those, mastering them.
Exactly, mastering and ultimately transcending these distracting impressions through the sheer force of pure wisdom, Jana. The peacock doesn't disappear. It's brought under control. It's mastered.
So it becomes the stable vehicle for the spiritual ascent, carrying the Kundalini energy as it rises through the spiritual centers.
Precisely. It signifies the victory over the lower self, the ego, and the transformation of the spiritual dilemma itself, all those distractions, into a tool for progress, a vehicle towards liberation.
Fascinating. Okay, shifting gears slightly now, back to the macrocosmic level. It seems like spiritual truth, or the structure of reality, tends to organize itself universally into certain foundational structures, regardless of the specific culture. The source discusses the concept of the Holy Trinity.
Yes, the triplo hypostases, or trifold substance. It appears again and again across different faiths and philosophies. It seems to be a fundamental insight into the nature of the divine.
So in Hinduism, how is it represented?
A key representation is Shirsi Somaskanamurti. This is an iconic form showing Paramashiva, representing the ultimate passive reality, being itself.
Okay.
Parashakti, the dynamic, kinetic, creative force, consciousness force.
The energy.
Yes. And their son, Skanda Kumara, the resultant form of divine knowledge, action, and bliss. Philosophically, this triad maps perfectly onto the ultimate Vedantic realities of Sat, pure existence, Set, pure consciousness, and Ananda, pure bliss. Sat, Sit, Ananda.
And this structure isn't exclusive to Hinduism.
Not at all. The concept echoes across antiquity. You find it in Platonism, for instance, with Hen, the one, the ultimate source, Nous, mind or intellect, the first emanation, and Sukho, world soul, the animating principle.
And of course, most famously in the West, in the core Christian doctrine as the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
Right. It really points to this seemingly universal intuition or understanding of the divine emerging from or manifesting as an indivisible yet trifold substance or reality.
In this fundamental structure of reality, this interplay of principles, it kind of sets the stage for maybe the most compelling allegory in the Skanda mythology, the eternal war between the Devas and the Asuras.
The gods and the demons, yes.
Ah.
And the source is absolutely emphatic here. This is not just some cosmic battle fought in external realms like in a fantasy novel.
No. The esoteric root of this conflict, and the source draws heavily on Shankaracharya's commentary on the Vedas here, is that it represents the ongoing inner warfare fought within the body, within the consciousness of every single living being.
The battlefield is the self. Always.
So who are the Devas and Asuras internally?
The Devas, the gods, represent the illuminated senses or mental faculties, those aligned with scripture, with discipline, with discernment, with light. They pull us towards higher realities.
Right.
The Asuras, often translated as demons but maybe better as anti-gods or powers of darkness, represent the opposite nature. Pure sense delight, darkness, ignorance, and the natural tendency of the senses to just run riot after sensory objects, pulling us down into materialism and bondage.
And Skanda is the general of the Devas, the divine forces.
He is the Vira, the hero, the focused divine will, who must conquer these internal foes within us. His battles are our battles.
The source outlines Skanda's most famous conquest, the destruction of the three primary demons, Padmasura, who's also known as Surapadman, Siamakasura, the lion-faced one, and Tarakasura.
Right. And crucially, these three are not just mythological villains. They symbolize the Trikamala Pashabandha.
The triadic fetter, the three bonds that tie the soul to conditioned existence.
Exactly. They are the core philosophical obstacles to achieving mukti, liberation. Understanding them is key.
Okay, let's delve into those fetters. What does Padmasura or Surapadman represent?
Surapadman represents Akava. This is often called the minuteness fetter or the fetter of egoism. It's the primal ignorance, the innate sense of being a limited, small, separate, individual entity. This ego sense obstructs the soul's natural omniscience and its all-pervasive nature. It's the feeling of, I'm just this little me.
The core sense of separation. Okay, and what about the next one, Siamakasura, the lion-faced one?
He represents Maya, the delusion fetter. This is the fundamental cosmic principle or power that creates the appearance of separation and duality in the first place. It limits the soul's inherent pervasiveness by wrapping it in the illusion of a manifold, diverse existence. Maya makes us believe that the transient, changing world is the only reality.
The veil of illusion. Got it. And finally, the most immediate consequence of our actions in that illusory world, Tarakasura.
Tarakasura represents karma, the fatal fetter of action and consequence. This is the ceaseless chain reaction, the momentum of our previous lives, choices, actions, and their results that binds the soul tightly to the cycle of birth, death, and rebirth. You're trapped by the consequences of your own past.
So Skanda's victory over these three specific Asuras is symbolic of the complete path. It's the roadmap for liberation from all three forms of bondage.
That's the interpretation. Conquering ego, delusion, and Maya, and the chains of past actions, karma, is the way to liberation.
But the ultimate outcome of these battles, particularly with Surapadman, introduces this concept that is theologically, just incredibly complex and utterly magnificent, what the source calls makarutai.
Ah, yes. Harsh mercy, or sometimes merciless mercy. It goes so far beyond simple conquest or punishment.
Yeah, what's fascinating here is that the divine act isn't annihilation. Lord Muruga conquers Surapadman, the embodiment of ego.
The most powerful Asura.
Right, and he splits the demon's body in two with his divine spear, the Vel. But instead of just destroying the two halves,
he transforms them into his eternal companions. The Saval, the cock, which becomes his banner, symbolizing the dawn of wisdom.
And the male.
The peacock, which becomes his vehicle, symbolizing the mastery over desire and illusion.
So he literally takes the essence of the offender, the source of the problem, and transforms it into a permanent tool of the divine. The demon becomes a servant, a flag, a vehicle.
Yes. It's absolutely profound. This, the source argues, is the natural characteristic of the all-compassionate God, ready to forgive even the greatest sinners, the most entrenched ego, and grant liberation through transformation, not just destruction.
So even the energy of opposition can be redeemed and integrated?
That's the theological principle here. It asserts that ultimately, all paths, even those of profound negative action or ignorance, eventually lead back to Eshvara, back to God. The source uses this analogy. Even if one travels the furthest possible distance in the West, philosophically speaking, the most materialistic or negative track imaginable, they will ultimately, inevitably, through divine grace and transformation, land back in the East, the source of spiritual light.
Wow.
It's an overwhelming kindness, really, a kind of cosmic guarantee of eventual realization for every single soul, no matter how lost they seem.
This has been truly a remarkable deep dive. We've woven together threads from ancient cosmology, modern physics, mythology, and deep internal yoga.
It's a lot to take in.
Definitely. We started with that surprising convergence, didn't we? Demonstrating how the laws of thermodynamics, conservation of energy, and entropy find this uncanny metaphysical counterpart in the concepts of Nirguda and Saguna Brahman.
The unchanging absolute and the changing relative whole.
Yeah. Then we connected this fundamental energy transformation to the powerful allegory of Skanda's birth, mediated by the catalytic fire principle, the Agni Tattva.
Showing creation as a kind of esoteric thermodynamic process, a divine sacrifice.
And from there, we moved into the intensely internal yogic science, where the fight for immortality, or at least self-mastery, is achieved by sublimating the vital energy, Bindu, awakening Kundalini,
Symbolized by mastering the inner snake.
and righting the spiritual dilemma represented by the peacock, controlling the distractions.
Turning obstacles into the vehicle.
And finally, we saw how the mythology itself, especially that epic battle with the Asuras, is revealed not as external warfare, but as this powerful, persistent inner warfare for the control of our own senses and mind.
Offering the incredible hope of liberation even for the most bound souls, through that transformative act of Masakuratai, harsh mercy.
Integrating the opposition.
Exactly. And the crucial point, the takeaway maybe, is that this profound knowledge, this Dahara Vidya, the secret science of the heart, it's not located externally somewhere, not just on a distant mountain peak or buried solely in ancient texts.
Right. The source reminds us that the esoteric heart center, the Hridayasthana, is often symbolized as a guha, a cave.
Well, Muruga is Gushrata, the lord of the cave. The knowledge, the potential, the battle, the liberation, it's all found within your own inner chamber. The journey to the divine is always, ultimately, an internal one. You carry the battlefield and the prize within you.
So to leave you, our listener, with a final thought, the spiritual seeker's journey, even after achieving such profound knowledge and making incredible progress, it feels like it's continuous. It's never really over.
It's an ongoing process.
Yeah. And it's captured so well by those lines from Robert Frost that the source material itself references, describing that deep commitment to continuous internal inquiry and growth.
Ah, yes. The woods are lovely, dark and deep.
But I have promises to keep, and miles to go before I sleep. And miles to go before I sleep.
That sense of an unending journey, that's
Yeah.
the commitment, really. The promise to keep going until you fully realize that the Atman, the true self within you, is everything. It is below, it is above, it's behind, in front, to the right, to the left. It's all there is.
And the ultimate realization that text suggests is to experience self-love, self-sport, self-joy, to become truly supreme and unlimited in your own being.
So the question lingers. What promises do you have left to keep on your own journey toward that unlimited self? Miles to go.